All right, it's time for the tools that you've been learning to create some fun artwork. Today we're going to be changing evolutionary science to create predators from prey and vice versa. So all we're going to be doing today is replacing the eyes off of one animal with eyes from another. As you select your animals, just make sure that the perspective of the photo is the same. So if you're using two different animals, they should both either be, if you're using a profile like the side view, both of the animals should be from the side, or if you're using a front view, they should both be from the front. Get in the habit of using photos that you have permission to use, and a great place to find these is at unsplash.com. So you'll choose the animals that you want to use. So for instance, if you want to use a wolf or a coyote, not really sure which is which on that, I'll just click on the download photo and it's going to go into my downloads bar. So you're going to use two different photos. So you'll do that twice. Now, what I've done is downloaded a lion and a cow. And I'm going to take the cow's eyeballs and put them on the lion. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to open them both up, and you'll notice that both of them are in the tabs in my workspace area. So I can switch back and forth in between them. And I'm going to take the cow eyeball and just select the cow eye by using one of the marquee tools. It doesn't matter if you use the rounded or elliptical marquee tool or the rectangular because you're going to be masking it anyway, so I'm choosing the rectangular one. As you're selecting the eye, make sure that you get a good bit of the area around the eye as well, because you're going to be blending the eye and the surrounding area with the other photo. So once you have the marquee dragged across, you get these little marching ants, which means that area is selected. Anytime you see those marching ants, it's like these little dashed lines that are just continuing to move. It means that there's a selection. So I'm just simply going to press Command C to copy. You could also go up to Edit and Copy. That's fine as well. But Command C is a shortcut, which is pretty useful. Then I'm going to go back to my lion, and I'm going to press Command V to paste that on this image. Another way to do that is to go up to Edit and Paste. So again, that's just a shortcut to use. In order to move this eye into a location that's going to be more appropriate, I'll use the Move tool, which is this little arrow that's pointing in 4 directions. And I can kind of move it around at that point. Now, obviously, the cow is a little bit smaller, so I'm going to need to make it bigger. In order to do that, I need to go up to Edit and Free Transform. When I do that, it puts this little bounding box around the outside edge of it, and then I can just drag it and then move it into place. And I'm going to do that. Proportion looks okay. There's a little check mark at the bottom which commits that edit. Now what I need to do is to duplicate this layer. If I open up my layers panel, you'll see that I have the lion and one eye. Now I can duplicate this layer simply by pressing Command J, or if I just click and drag that layer down to the plus, there's a new layer icon, it's going to create a layer copy, a duplicate layer. And I'm going to move this eye over to the other side. Now, obviously it's not facing the right direction, so I need to flip it horizontally. So again, I'll go up to Edit, and this time I'll go down to Transform and choose Flip Horizontal. Okay, so now I can move that into place, and I think that'll look good. So now I have 3 layers, but really I want the eyes to be in the same layer so that I can just apply edits as I go to that same layer. So what I'm going to do is to merge these 2 layers together. I can do that one of 2 ways. I can click on the menu bar here in the layers palette and go down to merge down, or I could click on that top layer and choose merge down. Either one is good enough. So just remember that you need to select the top layer and merge it down. Okay, so I've got them in position. I'm going to come back to these later after I have removed the eyes on the lion. So I'm going to hide that layer by clicking on this visibility icon. There's an eyeball. And I'll click on that, and then I will select my lion layer. Now I'm going to go to the clone stamp tool, and I'm going to go ahead and use the clone stamp to stamp away the eyes of the lion. Now I want to think about the textures and which way the hairs are going, so that's going to be kind of an important piece to this. I'm going to resample several areas just to get the basic, general idea of where that eye is no longer there. So just bear with me for a minute, and I will take away this eye. There's one eye almost done. And you don't have to do the most amazing job. Just kind of try to make it look natural, because you may see some of that underneath the eyes that you're stamping on there. And that looks a little unnatural. The lighting doesn't look quite right there. So, blending together different textures. Now it's looking better. Okay, so one eye is pretty much gone. I might just do that as well. All right, now we'll do the same thing with the other eye. Again, just trying to do a good enough job that it makes it look like the eye is no longer there. Adding different textures from the different spots on this photo, cloning it will make it look like this. Okay, so now I've got a lion with no eyes. So now it's time to put the eyes on. So I'm going to reveal that layer again of the eyes by clicking on that little box where the eye is not. I'm going to click and have the eye show up. So now I've got these two eyes. I'm going to select and mask this layer. So what I need to do is make sure that the eye layer is selected. And then I'll go up to select and mask. And then I'm just quickly going to drag over the main parts of the eye and then clean up the eyelashes just a little bit because I want to make sure that those are in there. And then I will click OK. Don't decontaminate the layers. It makes it look a little bit funky in this particular assignment. So do not select decontaminate layers. Output settings, I'm going to output it to the layer mask. I'll click OK. Okay, and now it's masked. However, it doesn't really look natural. So what I need to do is to bring back some of the picture of the cow eye. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to paint on this mask. So when you put a mask, when we went into select and mask, it puts a mask on that layer. And you can see that it's linked with that little chain link in between the two. If I paint on the layer mask, it's going to affect that layer mask. I'm only going to use black or white. So if you can remember, black conceals, white reveals. That's just a good rule of thumb so that you know that when you paint with white, it's going to show, it's going to unmask and unhide parts of that layer. So I'm going to choose my paintbrush and I'm going to switch this little color picker. Should be black and white. If it's not by default, you can just click the default icon, which is white in front of black. And I'm going to then paint onto that layer. I would recommend for this one starting out with an opacity of about 50%, making the hardness not hard, make it soft. And then I'm just going to shrink down the size of the brush a little bit. I'm going to begin painting on the mask. And you can see as I start to paint, more white shows up over here. So that's just showing me what I'm painting on the mask. And I'll kind of get that to a point where a fair amount showing. And it still doesn't look quite natural, so I will be editing more of this momentarily. So I'll bring maybe some of the color of the orange part of the cow into it. And then blending. Now you can see where the edge of that that selection box is appearing, right? So where I copied and pasted it, and the way that I removed that is simply I just switched from white to black here by clicking on these this arrow here. So if I go like that, it brings the black as the foreground color in that color picker, and then it lets me kind of remove some of that. So at this point, I'm going to fade it a little bit more. I'm going to drop it down to about 10% opacity, so it's not very opaque when I paint. I'm going to bring my brush up a bit, and then just kind of fade away some of that color so it's not too stark. All right. Now, once I've done that, I can zoom out a little bit and see what the overall effect is. It's looking pretty good. However, it still doesn't look quite right as far as the colors go. I mean, the black skin of the cow eye does match the black sort of the nose of the lion and the lips. But what I'm going to do is to add an adjustment layer. Right now, all I have is the lion layer and the eyes layer. I'm going to click on this little half-dipped cookie icon, and it says create a new fill or adjustment layer. When I do that, it brings up some options. I'm going to choose hue and saturation. So that means hue is another word for color, and saturation is basically how much color is in that. When I click on that, a dialog box comes up, the properties for that particular layer. And so if I highly saturate it, see what happens here. The color really gets saturated, right? It really comes out. And I could also discard the color information by desaturating it. I'm going to bring the intensity of the color down just a little bit. I might lighten it maybe just a little bit. And then I'm going to change the color overall of the image. And I can bring that down. If I wanted to get kind of crazy, I could make like a purple lion, red lion, green or something like that. But I'm just going to just change it just a little bit. Yeah, maybe not quite that much. Somewhere in there. And then I might bring that lightness down just a little bit, or maybe bring the saturation down a little bit more until I'm happy with the overall effect. Okay, so now if I look at my layers panel, I have that adjustment layer on top, and that adjustment layer is going to affect all of the layers below it by default. So for this assignment, know that that's what you want to do. You want to have it affect all the layers. I actually like this image as it is, so I'm going to call this good for now. And here's the final version, my predator prey for this assignment.